Back here already with another review of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, episode 5 here today, entitled Truth, just dropping today, actually. This was a very good episode, and we're quickly closing in on the end of season 1 here. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, but coming off that crazy-ass ending from last week, this was a nice step back, with a nice action scene in the beginning, a lot of storytelling from that point forward, but a very good episode here today, being joined, as always, by Phil. We'll start off with you, Phil DL616, on the Twitter machine. Phil, what's going on, man?
I'm good. Looking forward to talking about possibly the best episode so far.
Damn, high praise. We'll get into that. And Chris, you have a lot to say as well. You're on the Twitter machine at BR_doctor. Chris, what's going on, man? And you also have a lot to say about a different spinoff as well, right?
A spinoff that I want them to do, yes. But I agree with Phil. This definitely was my favorite episode of the show so far. Like, it has consistently gotten better every episode.
Yeah, no, I completely
I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, for totally different reasons from the last episode, too. So let's get right into it. Phil, why do you think this was the best episode so far?
I just think that they got that there's a lot of stuff that's outright said that is just amazing. Like, I feel like this was a really powerful episode for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Man, when I rewatched the cliffhanger from last episode, and I watched John kill the guy, I didn't notice two things. The first thing I didn't notice is the guy that he killed was the guy from the other episode that said that he used to idolize Captain America. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah,
I did notice it. Someone pointed that out to me after I watched that. I forgot to bring that up. I forgot to bring that up when we talked about it the other day. But yeah, no, I didn't notice that initially.
Yeah, I did not notice that until I watched the recap from last episode. And then the other thing is, he has an American flag on his shoulder, and most military patches are like muted, so it has the same color as the uniform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his is like muted, so it's like black and white. It's almost the same color as the Blue Lives Matter flag.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Shit. I mean, there's a lot of what they discussed on this episode they've been kind of building to for a while, but yeah, I didn't notice that. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode as to whether it's just all, I mean, again, this stuff has been going on for such a long time now, but it's more relevant now than ever, especially with the last couple of weeks and whatever. Chris, what would you say about this episode and why it was the best so far? Yeah, would you agree with Phil? Do you have any other analysis?
I mean, this episode felt like a 2-hour movie with how much they packed into it.
Mm-hmm.
So many different things happened. I mean, just starting with Sam and Bucky fighting Walker within the first 5 minutes was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Like, that fight scene, I loved that fight scene because, for one, it sort of shows how Walker, like, he's just a little more violent in his fighting style, it seems. Like, when Bucky's in Winter Soldier mode, he's obviously, like, pretty much unstoppable. But when he's not really, like, capable of taking Walker by himself by the looks of this. Like, he was pretty handily taking Sam and Bucky at the same time. But, you know, they eventually worked together and took him down and, like, dislocated his shoulder or something. But yeah, that opening fight scene was great, and the way that they had him, like, tear Sam's wings off, I don't know why, like, that just felt so much more impactful than I think it would have if it happened in a movie where it was just a random bad guy ripping the wings off. Like, watching Walker do it, it felt so much more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you see him give the wings to Torres, like, keep them, and it's like, oh, well, now we know Torres' origin.
Yeah.
He fixes these wings up, and he's going to be Falcon Jr., or whatever they decide to call him.
Yeah, man, there were so many emotional beats in that fight. Like, I mean, them talking to him at the beginning and him saying, I had to do it, and they basically called him out right away, like, no, you didn't. Like, this wasn't the guy that killed Hopkins, so you did not have to do this. And I mean, just their whole conversation, I mean, just the visual of him kneeling with the shield in front of him when they first came in was awesome. That just throughout the fight, how he was just trying to basically scratch and claw and keep the shield. Like, it didn't even feel like the fight was about beating them. It was just for him, like, this is mine. I'm not letting you take the shield. And all the way at the beginning, it goes all the way back to the very first episode and the second episode, really. And when they did beat him, and Bucky picks up the shield, and you can see how disappointed and kind of frustrated he was with Sam. Like, this is why I told you we should have just taken it from him from the beginning without saying it. Like, this is why I was upset at the beginning that you even let him keep it. And that's why he just threw it back at him and walked out of the room.
Yeah.
And even when Sam picked it up, I got to give Anthony Mackie all of his flowers for the way that he acted in that moment. And you could see all of the hurt and disappointment in his face when he picked up the shield and wiped the blood off of it. Because I think in that moment he understood, like, this was something that my friend created, this symbol for us. And watching somebody else, tarnish it hurt him.
Yeah, it was a powerful moment. I mean, that whole fight scene was great, and it honestly felt like that would be... I would have expected, had you told me ahead of time that scene was going to be in this episode, I would have expected it to be like the finale of the episode, but the fact that they opened with it and they kind of showed the aftermath from there, this kind of felt like an epilogue of sorts, but it's crazy because we still have one more episode left with whatever's going to happen there. But going back to what you've said for weeks now, Phil, with Sam becoming obviously Captain America, following in his footsteps finally here, taking the shield, training with it. We finally got the fucking footage of him throwing the shield after 5 episodes. We've seen this since they put it out during the Super Bowl a year and a half ago. We knew it was coming at some point, him and Bucky chucking it into the tray, and we finally got it in this episode, which was cool. But yeah, there's so much to get into. You guys mentioned Torres getting the wings. What is his name in the comics again? I know we've discussed this before.
I think it's just Falcon.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the same Joaquin Torres, but yeah, I think he just goes by Falcon because Falcon at that point is Cap, right?
Yeah, I think he just handed down the mantle to him until Sam goes back to being Falcon eventually.
Plus, in the comics, he had legitimate real wings, so he kind of earns that name a little more than the dude with the mechanical wings.
Yeah, I really like that scene though of them talking, and he picks up the shield and walks out, and he goes, yeah, what about the wings? And he just says, keep them, and he walks out with the shield. Like, that is just perfect.
Yeah, I like that guy playing Torres too. Like, he brings a good energy to the screen when he's there. Like, you can tell he still has this idealism where he's not jaded and broken down yet. Like, he's still a soldier who thinks his work is doing good, and he just has a good attitude. Like, I like that actor, and I really hope if they do a season 2 of this, we get more of him.
Yeah, I really like that Torres is in awe of Sam in a way that Sam is in awe of Steve.
Yeah, totally. There is absolute hero worship in his eyes, but not in an awkward, I can't believe I'm talking to you way. That's his mentor. Even though Sam might not see himself as Torres' mentor yet, Torres clearly sees him that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the dynamic there is great. I mean, I would assume that they'll probably follow up with that in, like you said, a second season, right? Because nothing really else makes sense in terms of what else he'd be involved in, right?
I mean, I doubt he's fixing those wings and showing up in the last episode as a surprise. So yeah, it'll probably have to be the next season. Yeah,
this episode kind of did the send-off for both, not send-off, but kind of tease what's next for him without doing it in the next episode, because you kind of get all of that in the last episode of a lot of shows, specifically WandaVision, we got that too, so I was very happy they kind of spread that out between this episode and next week, seemingly, including Zemo. I mean, he was taken off, he was kind of taken away at one point by the Wakanda woman AO, so he's going off, he'll be serving his time, blah, blah, blah. As you guys mentioned, I think it was you, Phil, that said the last time that we spoke that he wasn't going to die. I mean, obviously he didn't die, thank God. I mean, we saw this in this episode because he's such a great character and there's so much more you can do with him. I'm surprised we didn't see him in The Mask more than we did on this show, but would you guys agree this is probably it for him as far as this show is concerned, right? This was his send-off for right now?
Yeah, I think he'll be back in some other projects or something later, but I think this is it for Falcon and Winter Soldier. I really love the idea that this is clearly a callback to him trying to kill himself, and T'Challa was like, nope, You have to
Yeah, in
face
Civil War,
justice. And this is almost the same thing. And Bucky is just like he drops the bullets in front of him, and then Dora Milaje show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that scene was great too, because I felt like that was Bucky trying to prove to both himself and Zemo, I'm not the killer that you think I am anymore.
Yeah,
And
I loved
that
how
feels
he
like
brought up
that's
the list
been his
too.
whole journey.
Yeah,
That's been his whole journey this season, is to get past being the killer soldier, and he wants to find a more peaceful resolution, and that's why he tells Zemo, like, we don't want to kill Carly. We're going to do things our way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought that was interesting, and I didn't even notice the callback to Civil War, but that's a great point, Phil. And it was interesting that he brought up the list too, because we haven't seen that list since the first or second episode, and I think it goes back. I think you had brought it up, Chris, the last time that we spoke, that you expect this thing to go full circle with him interacting with the old man from episode 1, right? We'll probably get that next episode.
After that scene with Sam towards the end, when they're talking outside of Sam's house, it has to, because Sam's like, do the work. Don't go tell somebody you're sorry to make yourself feel better. Go do something to make them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is so obviously building towards him telling this man the truth about his son, and whether or not the man finds some way to forgive him, like whether he knows all the details or not, I don't know, but that's going to be a crazy scene when that finally happens.
Yeah, it's going to be super powerful. The whole show so far definitely has been. What was I going to mention to you guys? But yeah, there was just so much on this episode so far that, going forward, that it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it in the next episode and just beyond that, including the return of Isaiah. We got Isaiah Bradley's return on this episode too. Phil, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on that interaction between Sam and Isaiah?
Oh, man, there's so much to take from that conversation. Just the very idea of Sam taking the shield back to Isaiah, and it almost felt like he was trying to take it there to say that it was his and it belonged to him. And he didn't want it, and he didn't even want to see it. Everything he said to him, like, don't give me that bitter old man stuff, and he immediately comes back with, if you're not bitter, you're blind. Like, all of that is just fantastic writing. Their conversation inside, where he drops the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, and talks about, like, the experiments on the super soldiers, which is essentially a callback to Tuskegee experiments that are a real thing. Man, it's just so much stuff that he said that you could see why he is so cynical and jaded, but at the same time, you can see in Sam's eyes that he had already accepted, like, this hurts because this shouldn't have happened to you, but I'm not you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought it was great too. What were your thoughts on it, Chris?
Dude, I was saying it before, man. Carl Lumley needs to win, like, some kind of award for this show, because just pulling that scene off alone took some fucking acting on his part. Like, that was like a tear-jerking moment for a lot of people, I think, was watching him recount the inhuman things that were done to him. And what's crazy was, did you notice that what got him thrown in prison was the exact same thing that Cap did in his first movie?
Yes, it's the exact same thing that Steve did that got him a Medal of Valor.
Yes, the exact same situation. He went off against orders, saved his fellow soldiers. He comes back, and Tommy Lee Jones is all happy to see him. Isaiah comes back, and he gets thrown in prison for 30 years. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, but it also calls back to, like, that is a very real story in our history. Like, during World War II, they literally did take, and not just black, like a lot of minority soldiers, and do experiments on them specifically with mustard gas and how it would affect their skin.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
And yeah, it's horrible. And
what did he say? He said he told them that it was tetanus, right?
Yeah, something like that. And
yeah, and I think in real life, for the Tuskegee experiments that he's referencing, which are the real life events, I think it was I forgot what it was, but it was like a real disease that they were telling them they were attempting to create a vaccine for.
Yeah. And I read, so after this episode, I actually went and I looked up some of that stuff because I was like, I want to remember the details correctly. And there was a specific interview with a guy. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. He's 93 years old when this interview was conducted, so I think it was actually within the last 5 years.
Wow. And
apparently what happened to him was, like, they were basically just rounded up, like, a group of black and Japanese soldiers in World War II, and they were, like, locked in gas chambers and exposed to different things like mustard gas and sarin and stuff like that, and they weren't told what was happening, and then when it was all over, they were basically just discharged. And to this day, he still loses big patches of skin, like, that he has to peel off. And after a while, he started saving them in a jar just so he could prove to people that this was real. Because for years, the government denied this stuff. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the Freedom of Information Act became a thing that some of this knowledge became public. So it's absolutely heartbreaking to know that that kind of stuff happened, and for them to tie it into something that's supposed to be viewed as lighthearted, like a Marvel property, it's a ballsy move, and I applaud it, because this isn't the kind of thing that the MCU would have addressed 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just him outright telling Sam, like, there is no black Captain America, and anybody who would want to be that is a fool. It's like, it just all of that, for him to outright say that on screen is very, very risky. Yeah, that was a powerful scene, and it like, I had to watch the episode a second time right away anyway, but yeah, I loved that scene, and I hope Carl Lumley gets some attention, because, man, that guy can act his ass off. Yeah. Man, I mean, he inadvertently said something that was kind of the point of the entire series, but it fits his story. He said that they've been trying to chase that great white hope ever since he got injected with the serum. And he's absolutely right. The government has been trying to put somebody in Steve's spot from ever since then. But what they don't understand is you can't put anybody in Steve's spot, because they didn't make Captain America. Steve made Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at the end there, that's got to be Falcon's. That's got to be Sam's new gear, right? I mean, it has to be.
Oh, and in the case from Wakanda?
Yes.
Oh my God. I wanted to see it so bad, and they teased us, and then they didn't show it. I was so mad.
Yeah, it has to be his new suit and new wings, is what I'm guessing.
Oh, so does he keep the wings when he's Captain America in the comics, or no?
Yeah, he keeps the wings in the comics, cool. And I'm assuming there's wings on the suit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially since he gave the old wings.
That case was way too big to just be a suit. It's gotta be the rig too. But oh my God, I've seen, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I've seen leaked pictures of the toys.
I have not seen that. No.
I'm very curious to see if the toys are completely accurate, and they go, because if they do, I think the costume will look awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just glad Anthony Mackie got a chance to do the Falcon costume before this, because I know he was very adamant about wanting to do the white and red, and they never really did it in the movie.
Yeah, it was mostly black and red, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked his costume for this. It was a good look. The short sleeves, I know is like from one of his comic looks, but like in battle, do you really want your forearms exposed? Like, that was a weird decision to me. But beyond that, yeah, I think the new costume is going to look awesome. I knew as soon as I looked at the timer how much time was left. I'm like, they're not going to show us. Sure enough, it cuts to black right as he's looking at it.
Man, his training montage of him running and then, trying to learn how to use the shield, it was very similar to the What's Up Danger from Into the Spider-Verse for me. Because it's so earned. If we got that in the first episode, it wouldn't have felt as emotional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, you're right. It was awesome. I want to talk so bad about Bucky flirting with his sister.
Which is, I mean, come on, it's if I said a few episodes back that they are clearly taking nods from Lethal Weapon, like this is Lethal Weapon all day.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so funny. Just, hi Sarah, just smiling at her, and Sam giving him shit like, hey, don't hit on my sister, or I'll have, what was it, Carlos cut you up and feed you to the fish. Oh, that was awesome. I loved all that stuff down in Louisiana. I want the Wilson family fishing spinoff. Like, I want to watch the Wilson family just run a fishing business in a small town in Louisiana with all their neighbors.
I don't see why not, especially with all the other shows we're getting to Disney Plus. I think that'd be perfect. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys something else too, and I think it was Chris that mentioned this. Chris, you might have mentioned this maybe last time we spoke or the time before that you felt we might get a redemption story of sorts with John Walker. Do you think we're still going in that direction? I feel like we might be getting that with Carly, if anything, or as she made in wrestling terms, the full-blown heel turn with calling herself the terrorist or the criminals. I think it was in this episode.
So, with Carly, I was trying to think of specific examples where I've seen this before, but this is a trope in movies that has become pretty common in the last 10 to 15 years, and it's an idealistic young woman gets radicalized to a cause and then ends up going overboard.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel like that's where they're going with her. Like, she's embracing the fact that they're the criminals now, and she's more willing to work with Batroc, and she's willing, which I also want to talk about because that lends into my whole Sharon Carter's the power broker thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting to see them taking her down that path. I don't know if they're going to make her redeemable in this season or if that's even the goal. But with Walker, I mean, I don't know much about this Contessa character, so I was hoping Phil could fill in some blanks there. Like, what's up with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character trying to recruit Walker? Like, where's that going?
So, there's two ways to look at this. So, Contessa was a double agent. She was a SHIELD agent that ended up being a Hydra agent. That ended up later being an agent of Leviathan. So she's clearly a bad guy here. Just the way she talked throughout this entire scene, she's clearly a bad guy. They could be, sowing the seeds that Hydra's still around. They could be sowing the seeds of creating Hammer, which is also interesting. There's so many ways they could be going with this, and if you're trying to recruit a Captain America, you could easily be going the Dark Avengers route. You could be going the Thunderbolts route. There's so many things this could be.
Yeah.
So she's the cameo, right? She was the cameo. Yeah, she had to have been. I didn't know if there was a cameo like as in a character we had seen before, if it was a cameo from just a notable actor or actress, and that was obviously it. But what were you going to say, Chris?
Well, yeah, for one, this is definitely the cameo that they were talking about, and I think they hyped it up in a good way where they didn't tell us like what kind of cameo to expect. Mm-hmm. So when she showed up, I was very happy because I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I was never really into Veep, but just going back to Seinfeld, like she is one of my early crushes. So to see her coming in here and still looking great after recovering from cancer, like Jesus, that woman is a beast. Like mm-hmm. She never stopped working during all that, and to see her come in and just absolutely own that scene, like she's the only one who talks during that scene. Walker says nothing. His wife says one or two things, and Julia completely ignores her. Like, only looks in her direction once in a very condescending way. So, oh my God, yeah, she did such a good job in that scene, and I really hope it's not just like a one-time thing. I really would love to see her become something in the MCU.
You don't introduce a character like Contessa who has ties to so many things and she was Fury's love interest in the comics, right? Am I wrong about that? Yes.
So I wonder if we're going to see any of that, like her flirting with Samuel L. Jackson. Like, that would be kind of funny. But, yeah, Walker, I don't know if they're going down the let's redeem him route now. It definitely seems like he's going off the rails. And did you guys see the mid-credit scene?
Yes.
Like, was he building a shield that's meant to come apart into different pieces?
I think he's just building a shield in general. I don't know if it's supposed to come apart, but he's building a shield.
Like, I was wondering if maybe he was building it in so he could take off pieces and throw them as, like, individual weapons or something. But, yeah, that mid-credit scene gave me, like, the feeling that they're just going straight villain with him now. At least for the time being, which I have no problem with. Like, you got to have a bad guy, and he's doing a great job of, like, playing this character that, like, he wants to be good, he just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a great job. The actor that plays John Walker. When he took his helmet off during the fight at the beginning, and you could just see how just unhinged he was in his eyes and just his facial expressions. That scene was great.
Oh, yeah, especially when Sam's like, you got to give me the shield. And he's like, oh, so that's what this is. Like, he read that line, like, so monotone. Just, it was perfect for that scene. Yeah, he's killing it, man. I did not expect him to be this good of an actor, because everything else I've seen Wyatt Russell in, he was either a very small part or his character was, like, a dumb jock.
Yeah, he's definitely killing it. I mean, even when he was kneeling before they walked in, and then he repeated the Hoskins line, "Time to go to work."
Oh my God, yeah. This episode was just awesome. There's so many things. There's so many specific scenes in this episode that stand out. That's what's crazy. Like I'm saying, it felt like a 2-hour movie packed into an hour, honestly, because they did so much.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't even get into his court scene and him getting discharged.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much stuff to pick out there. Him acting like he didn't do anything wrong, and him essentially saying they made him this way and all these other things. There's so much subtext there. There's so much subtext there if you want to go into the police brutality stuff, and even some of the PTSD stuff of what soldiers go through when they come back from war. It was such a good scene.
And then on top of that, the scene where he goes and talks to Lamar's family, like, that was a very emotional scene. And it also made me wonder, does Walker actually think he killed Lamar's killer, or does he know it was Carly? Because he said the same thing to Sam and Bucky. When he's like, he killed Lamar, and Bucky's like, he didn't kill Lamar. Because he didn't. He wasn't the guy who did it. Like, I'm wondering if Walker is just going so off the rails that he's misinterpreting events now.
I read that as he is trying to justify killing that man. I don't think that he believes that guy killed Carly at all. I think he is just trying to justify for himself that he killed somebody that didn't do a crime. And I mean, technically didn't do a crime. He's on a team with Carly, but he didn't do this specific crime.
And it's so sad that it's like one of the guys on Carly's team that you can tell is a good person. And that scene, like you said, Phil, with talking about how he looked up to Cap, like, setting that up was beautiful, because then it's Cap who ends up killing him, and it's tragic. And it's, man, this show is such a welcome surprise.
Yeah. So when they go to Hoskins' parents, like you said, when Walker goes to apologize to them and whatever, did you notice the sister was kind of giving him like a weird look? Like, that's why I think that he knew that it wasn't him who killed Hoskins, and that, I don't know, it seemed like she knew that he was lying about that, and she was kind of like weary about him.
Yeah, it didn't look like she was feeling his apology at all. Like, she was looking at him like, I'm ready for you to get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's as simple as maybe she blames him a little bit for even putting her brother in that position. But yeah, there was some weird vibes from her for sure. And I don't know if we'll get any follow-up with it, just because, it's Hoskins' extended family. I don't know how big of a part they're going to play in any future stuff. So it was weird. It was weird and it was awkward, but I think it also did a little bit to show, like, there are people who don't just automatically trust what this guy is saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could go into just the fact that, I mean, even when we see him walk into the courtroom, like, there are people outside yelling things at him, but we can't hear what they're yelling. So I gather Americans have seen the footage of him killing the guy. And so Hoskins' sister has had to see it. So it's like you're trying to, in her eyes, she could be looking at it like you're trying to conflate two things. My brother is dead, and you're trying to absolve yourself of killing this man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it definitely felt like. I mean, it was a great scene. I mean, like you said, every part of this episode was really, really good. It did leave me wondering, though, are we seeing him on the next episode, or like some of the other characters, was this it for him with the whole Julia Dreyfus thing?
Oh, he's definitely going to show up in Cap costume with his new fake shield in the next episode.
Does he know that Falcon has the shield? He knows, right? Because remember, the judge was like, "Oh, go get the shield back" or whatever. Like, wouldn't he just say, like, "I don't fucking have it"? Like,
yeah, he knows.
Okay.
Falcon just kept the shield and didn't tell the government.
Yeah, he knows.
I'm wondering if maybe they could potentially set up a storyline where the government wants it back, Falcon says no, and I don't know, something happens, but
I mean,
yeah, he knows it's Falcon who's got it for sure.
Okay.
I mean, we've been down this road. He did that in the first episode. He gave them the shield and thought they were going to do the right thing. And so now he's like, no, I will not give it back to you. But I mean, I think that is the genius of this episode is that we watch Sam realize that Steve did carry this thing because he wanted to. He carried it because it was his burden. And I think Sam was like, no, now this is my burden. I can't let anybody else tarnish what this symbol means.
Yeah, and I was wondering, too, because if he has the shield, if Falcon has the shield, or Sam has the shield, are they going to, the government or whoever, are they going to recognize him once he completely suits up as Captain America? Will they recognize him as Captain America, or is that just going to be implied?
Maybe, but I don't think that he's looking for them to acknowledge him as Captain America. Because you have to remember, Steve, they didn't intend for Steve to be what he was. They put him out there as propaganda, and he turned it into something more. That's not something that they asked. They just tried to subvert it later once he did great things. And I think this is kind of the same thing. I think Falcon is going to take the mantle for himself, and it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Man, there's just so many things to look at with that. I mean, even if you look at, I looked at the Civil War scene where, not Civil War, no, it is Civil War, I'm sorry. Civil War scene where Steve raises the shield over his head to smash the arc reactor, and how afterwards he felt wrong for even taking it that far, and he dropped the shield and gave it back to Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, all of that, just all of that, for him to realize that in that moment is why Steve is Steve.
Yeah. No, they do such a great job of showing the comparison or how different John Walker is from Steve, and why Bucky can't be the next Captain America, and why it has to be Sam. Another question I had for you guys, too. So in that scene with the government officials at the very end, when the screens go fucking wonky and shit, is that supposed to, like, who's behind that? I thought it would be John Walker exacting revenge because they were, discharging him, all this other shit. But it doesn't seem like he'd be behind it. Was that the power broker, or was that another force, Zemo, or who was that supposed to be?
I mean, I assumed that was Carly's group because she had mentioned we're not going to let the GRC vote happen.
Oh, right, okay.
That was what we were kind of watching, was them voting on what to do with all of the displaced residents.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's Carly kind of enacting the first step of her plan. But it sort of feels like that now that they brought back Batroc, now we have two villains. We have Walker and Batroc, so Bucky and Sam each get somebody that they're going to have to fight in the finale. I think it'll probably be Batroc against Sam, and then it'll be Walker against Bucky, because I think it'll be Super Soldier on Super Soldier, and then Mercenary on regular soldier.
Yeah, well, Batroc already said that he wanted to kill him, too, so that would make the most sense, yeah.
Also, so we see this one scene of Sharon.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, too, yeah.
Calling somebody who yells at her in French, like, it had to be Batroc she was talking to, right? Like, did she send Batroc to...
Well, she said she was calling in a favor to an Algerian prison, so I assume she got Batroc out of jail.
Yeah, well, she said you'd still be rotting in that prison if it wasn't for me. So I think she got him out at some point in the past, and now she's like calling back in her favor. But yeah, it feels like that's connected in some way. And she said, "I'll pay you double," which makes me think that the targets are Sam and Bucky.
Yeah,
I don't know. Taking Sharon and doing a heel turn with her is definitely a direction I wouldn't have predicted at the beginning of this show. But
is it a heel turn though?
I mean, if she ends up being the power broker, yeah, I'd say that's a heel turn. Like, because it seems like she's trying to wipe Sam and Bucky off the board now. At least that's what it looks like. Maybe this is all a diversion, and we're gonna find out that it's something else. But I get the feeling that Sharon's not gonna be the good person that she was in the comics anymore.
I can see that. The thing I noticed was when Carly used the app to activate those other people's phones when they were in the park, it looked very similar to Sharon's, whatever that thing Sharon was using to get satellite access on her phone in the other episode. And so I was like, it makes sense. Is that basically saying that's where Carly is getting all this tech and help from, is from Sharon?
Could be. I mean, it could be that the power broker is somebody else, but Sharon is also sort of her own bad person now. But at this point, because there's really nobody else we can point to and say, like, that's been the power broker the whole time, I feel like it's going to end up being Sharon. But
yeah,
I'll be pleasantly surprised if it's not.
Yeah, the only thing is, if the power broker is Sharon, why would she help Carly? Because, I mean, she is out. If she was the power broker, she would be still out to get Carly because Carly took the rest of the serum.
Yeah, but she may see Carly as a means to an end as far as getting Sam and Bucky out of the picture, because they know where she is now, and she may look at them as like loose ends that she needs to tie up.
Yeah, I would guess, even if she is the power broker, I'm assuming that Contessa is working with the power broker in some way. Because she knew a lot about the serum and everything before she got there. She knew a lot. And, I think that's part of her interest in John, is he is somebody that she knows that has the serum at this point. And, that's their way to recreate the serum in a way, even if they're not just trying to use him as, just a super soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think they would just go the route of that's the power broker, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character?
I'm not sure.
Because it kind of feels like they're going in a direction of, we're not using the power broker from the comics, we're having somebody else use that title.
Yeah.
So it's all crazy, but
if it's Hydra, I could still see it being somebody inside Hydra that's the power broker as well, unless Sharon is full blown Hydra at this point.
Just bring back Ward from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I hope we see. Isn't Agent Han in the S.H.I.E.L.D. show?
Yeah, sorry, Graham. Little spoiler. Yeah, Ward shoots her.
That's right. When he
turned,
he did kill her. I forgot.
I didn't hear that.
Okay.
I'll
Are you ever gonna watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? I mean, it's gonna take you 9 years to get through that show. There's so many episodes.
If I haven't watched one episode of Daredevil yet, it's probably gonna take me close to 10 years. So yeah, I'll probably forget by that point.
Yeah, man.
But I almost thought that she was Han at first when Julia walked up, because I was like, I noticed the streak in her hair, and Han has like the red streak in her hair. But then when she introduced herself, I was like, okay, it's not Han. And then I was like, wait, and was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, but it sort of seems like at this point they're saying Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is in its own little bubble, because haven't we kind of seen a couple characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. played by different people in the MCU already?
Sort of. I hope it's not completely gone, because I would like to see some of those characters show up again. Like, man, they've got to use that version of Absorbing Man again.
Yeah. Yeah, he was cool. I'd love to see the actress who played Ada show up in the MCU, because she killed that season. But the whole LMD thing, who knows if they'll even go too deep into that.
Yeah.
I still got to watch that shit, so I'll contribute my part of the conversation after I watch this show in 2042 or whenever it is that I finish it. But was there anything else from this episode that we didn't cover? I mean, there's a lot I know that there was in this show, but I think we covered all the major points, unless there was something else that we missed.
The only thing that I really liked about this episode we haven't talked about is we finally got to see Sam and Bucky bond a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, the tension is sort of gone between them now, and working on that boat and just sort of spending time together sort of brought them to a different place in their friendship, that now they're being more honest with each other. Like, the way that Bucky opened up to Sam was,
I was going to say.
He opened up to him way more than he ever did as therapist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, he was immediately honest about the fact that he's still having nightmares, and for him to admit, like, that S.H.I.E.L.D. is almost the last family that I have. So when you turned it down, like, and I think we talked about that a little bit when we covered the first episode, like, that's his connection to Steve, is that S.H.I.E.L.D. still, and even though it's just a symbol to him, it's like, it's something he can hold on to as, like, that's my friend's thing. And I don't know, I loved that conversation that the two of them had, where they just got honest with each other and both kind of told each other the hard truths that they need to hear. And also the fact that Bucky took the moment to be like, we didn't understand what it meant to try to give that shield to a black man. I owe you an apology. I'm sorry. Like, that right there was just such a powerful moment in this episode that I'm really glad they put in.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And I that's why I think him having to leave and blow off steam, because I think he really was mad that he gave the shield away and he let that happen. But I think he had to also understand, like, this happened because, Sam understood, what Isaiah was already telling him in the first episode, that he, on some level, didn't believe that America would ever accept him as Captain America. And I think he had to go through this journey of understanding, like, even if they don't accept me, I have to take this mantle, because not just because Steve gave it to me, but because, like he said in this episode, all of this suffering and stuff happened behind not just the shield, but, trying to recreate the super soldier. And I can't let that stand and not still stand up and fight.
Mm-hmm.
I love how they had the kids, like, being enamored with the shield. Like, Bucky wakes up and they're playing with it in the living room, and then after his little Rocky montage, you see Sam holding the shield and his nephew's just kind of in awe of it and is just sort of touching the outline of the star. Like, that was a nice little scene that I think that helped strengthen why Sam would still choose to take up the shield even after that conversation with Elijah, because he's like, or with Isaiah. Because to him, it's like, I know that to a lot of people there's a complicated history to this shield, but I can make it mean something in my own way. And it's sort of the continued evolution of his character stepping out of Steve's shadow and becoming his own hero.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Because, I mean, they're kids. They don't understand what Isaiah already understood. They didn't go through what Isaiah went through. So for them, they just see this as, this symbol of hope and something that a hero carried. And Sam is already the hero because they're his nephews. So I think that was a great way to tie back to that without saying it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I completely agree. I think that's it, though. I think that's pretty much everything from the episode. Again, unless there was something else that I completely missed. I think that was all, right?
I think we covered everything. I mean, who would have thought that they could have followed up WandaVision with something that was just as deep and impactful, but so much more real?
I was going to say, that was my other question that I forgot to ask you guys when we were discussing this earlier. Is this like the most real project that Marvel has done in the MCU? Because I feel like nothing else is nearly as relatable as this show has been so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is part of what made Winter Soldier so good, is that it was grounded in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is even more grounded because the thing is, like, Steve doesn't have living relatives. Like, Sam has family. It's not just that, he has the mission. He has family and all this other stuff that matters. And going back to his life in Louisiana, it helps to add more depth to the character and the show.
Yeah.
It's the most culturally relevant thing that Marvel's done so far, for sure. Like, it's addressing issues that we're currently dealing with in both a head-on way, but also a way that's relatable for everybody. Like, I think anyone can watch this show and get the message and take something away from it, whether they're, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. It's doing it in a way that doesn't talk down to the audience while still making it palatable for people of a young age. Like, it's such a weird line for them to walk and be able to do it so well. Like, yeah, I think, Phil, you said on Twitter the other day, like, don't tell me Marvel can't tell, like, relevant stories anymore. Like, it's true, man. They've proven that if they hire the right creators, they can tell a story that's both meaningful and entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that this is airing on Disney Plus is amazing to me, because if you told me we were getting a show like this a year or two ago and you said it would be on Disney Plus, I just absolutely would not believe you, especially with the ending of last week's episode. It's so different than anything else on the service, but it's been a great show so far, so I'm very interested to see what the last episode's going to be. So last question for both of you guys. Chris, I'll start with you. What are your final predictions, expectations for next week's season finale? What do you think is going to go down?
I mean, I think it's just going to come down to, Falcon and Batroc, Bucky and Walker, and I don't think we're going to see any of the villains die, except maybe Carly. Like, she'll probably sacrifice herself in some way. And, it seems like that's what her character is designed for, but I feel like we have to find out who the power broker is. Like, if they don't, then that whole tease throughout the season will have been for nothing, and I really do think it's just going to end up being Sharon.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting too. I'm thinking it's going to be... I mean, with how frequently they've shown her so far, I'm not really sure what her payoff would be unless she was the power broker, which is disappointing. I like Sharon, it just doesn't really feel as eventful as it should. But what about you, Phil? What do you expect and predict from this last episode?
I mean, I feel like this is all, like, the last episode is going to be Sam finally donning his costume and carrying the shield and being Captain America, of course. But I also think they've set up so much of, like, the seedy underbed of the Marvel Universe and set up so much espionage stuff. They're clearly setting up some other kind of show, whether that be another season of this show or a show where Winter Soldier goes, on into the underground and tries to stop Sharon or whoever ends up being a power broker. Like, I feel like that's the next step after this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't a reveal with the power broker. Like you said, I could definitely see that being dragged out until another season. Like with WandaVision, like there was a lot of open-ended stuff there. That wasn't really with the second season. That was more until the Doctor Strange movie. But I could see that happening here as well. But yeah, this has been great, guys. I'm looking forward to next week's episode, breaking it down with you guys, and then after that, I think we have like a 2-month break of nothing Marvel related until Loki comes out, and I think what is it? Black Widow comes out in July, so there's going to be a lot of shit coming up in the summer and beyond, but nothing after next week's season finale. So we'll talk about it then. Chris, people can find you on the Twitter machine at BR_Doctor, and Phil, you're on the Twitter machine at PhilDL616. Phil, Chris, this has been great, guys. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.